A very good morning to all the listeners. I'm indeed thankful to the Mumbai Zoo authorities for giving me the opportunity to address this forum on World Environment Day. And I'm going to talk about environment and public health linkages in COVID era. Take a look at these images flashing across the screen. What strikes you? What comes to my mind is India with a cultural diversity, socio-demographic factors, biodiversity, wildlife, natural bounty, landscapes, and of course, all this leading to health disparities. We are also a productive nation. We have a large amount of the youth population. Therefore, preventive health strategies and environmental conservation become our priority, as this population needs to be our asset and not our liability. If you see the areas of Leh Ladakh, Pengong Tso Lake, the rainforest, the tea gardens of Darjeeling, areas in the northeast, there is a wide variety of geographical variation and also climatic conditions vary. From the ravines of Chambal to the marble rocks of Balaghat, deserts, there is a lot of climatic variations which affect the health of the biodiversity and the individuals. Climate induced variabilities like changing precipitation, melting glaciers, rising sea levels, and flooding have impacted not only the economy, flora, and fauna, but also public health. And that is where I'm going to draw your attention today. India is on course to achieving its voluntary goal of reducing emission intensity under the Paris Agreement. Significant elements are introduction of electric cars, smart cities, and generation of 175 gigawatt of renewable energy source as soon as possible. And so we have seen rapid urbanization, industrialization, mechanization in agriculture, deforestation. Of course, now we look at the positives, we talk about compensatory afforestation, and the awareness amongst the public has to be increased towards our delicate relationship with the environment. At such forums, the question most asked to me by the public is our health affected by the environment? And in the context of the current pandemic, which we are seeing after almost 100 years when it was the Spanish flu, yes, our health is affected by the environment, but to answer this, we need an integrated system that links data from environment, exposure biology, and human health data. So, is it in our genes and are we hardwired? So, we in fact are gene influenced, not gene determined. So, how relevant is our thinking about risk assessment practice to human health? I'm sure we all agree that one size does not fit all. So, how I'm going to outline my presentation is define the environment for you, provide a conceptual framework, discuss the potential for human exposure to environmental hazards, leading in real causes of death, health risk assessment, very important, impact on biodiversity, ecosystem restoration, and last but not the least, discuss gene environment interaction and the importance of this interaction on disease causation. So, if we look at our future, today we talk about climate change, we talk about public health. Above all this comes ecosystem restoration, socioeconomic determinants, and environmental security. And all this is to bridge the health disparities across countries and nations across the globe. As we all would agree that science should be done in context. So, genomics, molecular biology, biochemistry, physiology are what govern health and disease, and all these get integrated as environment interactions. So, we do have a climate system, and we know there's atmosphere, precipitation, solar radiation, terrestrial radiation. We have a role to be played by the greenhouse gases, aerosols, the land, ocean, ice sheets, glaciers are all an integral part of the climate system. So if you look at the entire realm, what is the Earth's ecosystem? Here we have some cosmological and geological processes. Now all these are induced by human actions. So there is rapid natural and genetic change that takes place. Let's look at the greenhouse gases. We have surface long wave radiation, we have outgoing long wave radiation, we have absorption of these gases, and ultimately this greenhouse gas trap leads to global warming. Now, obviously, all this has a biological and social impact. So, we have rising temperatures, precipitation, increase in sea levels. Now, what are the most important impacts? The health impact in terms of the weather related mortality, infectious diseases, which we are seeing today, air quality, respiratory diseases, noise pollution, agricultural implants in terms of the crop yields and the mitigation measures. Forest impacts are so important to our wildlife and biodiversity. So we also have a geographical range of forests. So forest health and productivity is our main concern today. Coming to water resources impacts, we have water supply, water quality, and it's also important to see the competition of water. Ultimately, conservation of water becomes a priority. Impacts on coastal areas, very important in today's scenario. Species and natural area restoration. This is an integrated approach which we need to understand, because gone are the times when we can be in our own silos. It's high time that we make sure that we integrate our resources, put our heads together, and come out with strategies of multidisciplinary research and work which really benefits society, and that would be science in context in terms of science for society. Take a look at these land areas that are projected to warm more than the oceans, with the greatest warming at high latitudes. This is, of course, the global picture that I'm giving you. Some areas are projected to become wetter, so others drier, with an overall increase of rainfall. And then we read this all the time nowadays. A newspaper cutting said that the Earth's 2000-year-old climate record revealed. So they have ice aging, and we also have air quality related news, like there's poison in the air, there's arsenic in the water, there's toxin from e-waste, posh living is polluting homes, it's causing asthma, and a lot of sinusitis in urban population, urban children. Even if we look at pollution in today's context, we are not looking only at water, air, land pollution. We're also looking at environmental carcinogens. We are looking at noise pollution and a lot of other associated factors. This is where we stand today in terms of water, land pollution. Though we have campaigns like the plastic ban, and we have the Swachh Bharat campaign, and they need to be really applauded. Kumbh, for an example, we have almost 5 crore pilgrims a day. So you can imagine the amount of infrastructure we need to have to prevent the mass pollution, and the kind of technology that needs to be applied to ameliorate the situation. Heavy metals in the marine environment are not far away from ethyl mercury, selenium, mercury toxicity. We have it all. So basically, no sector of the ecosystem is not vulnerable now. For an eye opener, what do we see today? We see a lot of landslides, we see flooding, excessive rainfall, overflowing dams, and ultimately inconvenience and disease to the living beings. We have a lot of drying up of water bodies, which affects the biodiversity in forest areas. We have felling of trees, and these are pictures from central India where we had worked on the primitive tribal groups in the Bandhavgarh National Park and around in those areas, and it was a health and environment survey. So, coming back to the environment, what is the natural environment? We have physical, chemical, biological things in our surroundings. Then we have a man made or a built environment, that is, physical structures where we live, work, play. Consequences of human alteration to the natural environment, example, air pollution. Lifestyle factors such as diet, exercise, societal influences that may affect health. So, we are looking at this whole gamut together. Now, we also have in biological factors viruses. We're seeing a glaring example in front of us today. Microbial agents, animals, plants, etc. Psychosocial being very important. We have cultural values, customs, beliefs, education, lifestyle, habits, and social organization. Basically, it has to be our social responsibility to restore and preserve our environment. So those conservational measures go a long way in attitude building of the people. It has to be an attitudinal shift. So when we talk about the environment, we're looking at the holistic picture of all these factors combined. So if you see, this is very interesting, and so I put it up for you that this is where health begins. So if you look at obesity, cancer, heart attacks, anything, the odds are set much earlier than we realize. And so there are genes to blame for everything. And all these life stages present unique risks. We have childhood, adolescent years, adult years, middle years, and elderly adult years. So each life stage presents unique risks. We understand today that we are in this omics attic stage. Everything is very tech savvy. There is genomics, transcriptomics, proteomics, metabolomics, phenomics, and last but not the least, bioinformatics. Genomics is all over the media. We have an IQ gene, we have a cancer gene, we have an intelligence gene, we have alcohol gene, and we have possibly an obesity gene. So we are looking at very easy targets that A leads to B. But we need to understand that in most of the diseases, it is always multifactorial. It is not like a threshold dose that if you have, all these genes loaded, you do need to land up with this disease. So there is a lot of epigenetic factors, which also includes environmental factors, which play a big role in disease causation. So what determines the health of a population? So we just said that we have social, societal, and the total ecology matters. We have genes, we have health behaviors, and of course, medical care. Now, why are we studying these interactions? We have agreed that genes and environment work together to determine a disease outcome. Genes also influence other genes. Not everyone is equally susceptible to stressors and toxins, and so this is the way it really works. Yes, I did not say that life is fair. Sounds complicated, let's simplify. What are the leading causes of death? So we do have a lot of heart diseases, cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which could be inflammatory and which could also be infectious, as in the current scenario. Then we have stroke, Alzheimer, diabetes, and all the other diseases. This is with the percentage of total deaths, and there's an age adjusted rate. What is the rate at which age? This is why I was talking about our population gradient and our dividend. So, how do we use this information? What are the routes of chemical transport? If you're talking about environmental carcinogens, we're talking about epigenetic factors. Now, we are exposed to industry and manufacturing. We have consumer products, we have workplace products, medicines, materials. You've seen the pharmacotherapy, therapeutic drugs. We have waste management, we have air, plants, and we also have a lot of influenced by the genes and the other intake of, say, the food which we have, and this varies from the time the person is a human fetus to adulthood. I'd also want to remind you that when we are talking about global warming, suppose we spoke about allergy season being prolonged, or we spoke about the ambient air quality, say in indoor areas, or say the radon pollution in an enclosed area. We were looking at all this because we had to come out with certain factors that govern the health parameters. Now, sources of emissions of air pollutants, say in any area like Mumbai, we have, say, industry, which is 52%, we have transportation 27%, we have consumer and commercial products, then we have residential heating, we also have agriculture, etc., and other factors. So this is back in 2013 when we published about correlation of increased maxillary sinusitis and urban air pollution. This was well acclaimed, and this led to further research of air pollution linked to bronchial asthma in school children. And so air quality monitoring was correlated with the prevalence of sinusitis. Now, air quality in enclosed places where smoking is allowed is far worse than air quality at garbage dumps also. If you look at our own city, determinants of air pollutants. So we have type of pollutants, concentration in the air, duration of exposure, interaction between air pollution and aeroallergens such as pollens and fungal spores. And now when we talk about road traffic exhaust, you need to understand that we're talking about ozone, particulate matter, diesel exhaust particles, indoor pollutants. And somewhere we have to become the conscious change we want to see around us. So this cartoon explains that. We need to make sure that our strategies, our policies, and ultimately all our research needs to come to the common man. It needs to be available at a very affordable price to our poorest patient. And therefore, I'm again emphasizing the need for interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research to come out with feasible solutions for society. If we compare this to a correlation with bronchial asthma, rarely does one hear a wheeze without a sneeze. I'm sure you would agree. So, air quality has a lot to do with our upper respiratory tract infections. Impact being, of course, increased visits to the hospital, leave from work and school, attention deficit. So, this was 2013, the Journal of Trace Elements in Medicine and Biology. And we studied the effect of certain trace elements like copper, zinc, selenium, and molybdenum in certain precancers and cancers to know their contribution in the process of carcinogenesis and disease formation and cancer development. This is some of my work in the interior areas where interaction between, you know, uh, tobacco-induced diseases and the oral health among tribes in central India. Then we also studied their immunological and biochemical responses of markers in precancer and cancer. This was the Head and Face Medicine, 2006. So when we spoke about climate change and oral health, current challenges and future scope, we emphasized that the need for this integrated approach, and especially in the public health perspective. And this is noteworthy that for wildlife conservation, do not let them be history. I'd like to reiterate this today. We also have some international publications on tiger bites. So, coming back to where we were wanting to, understand why are we not able to establish a toxic dose. Now it's difficult to say a 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Why? Because the toxicity depends on the reaction of the person depending on his physiological genetic factors. So when it comes to toxicity, say X toxin is uh, you know so virulent, or say this much of the viral dose is enough to cause disease. It's difficult to say that because one size doesn't fit all, and when it comes to toxicity, you have different parameters for fetus, infant, children, adolescents, and we know very little about this. So it's not like a threshold dose that this much level of exposure is going to cause this disease. It may not, faster, later, all these are variables. So what can we do is assess the susceptibility. Now in terms of increased exposure, decreased physiology, behavioral response, exposure to co-pollutants, gene-environment interactions, we have an enhanced susceptibility. Similarly for environment and cancer, we know that it depends on the genetic makeup as well, and a lot of epigenetic factors. This is an interesting case of two 94-year-olds. They are identical twins. Now, one was healthy till very healthy till a few years back, meaning playing tennis, bridge, driving, doing everything that anybody would do for activities of daily living. Whereas the other twin is extremely ill with Alzheimer and neuromuscular dystrophy, and is leading an absolutely parallel life. Now here why I'm stressing this is the genes are the same, they are identical twins, but the environmental factors have played their role in the disease causation. So whether we live long or we die young, less stress or the genes we inherited. So we don't have many things to blame but ourselves. So it is a conscious responsibility to control environmental factors. So, what should we do? Develop and implement strategies to eliminate or reduce exposure to environmental contaminants. So, this can be social, economic, political, legal considerations. Improve the environmental quality. Focus on ecosystem restoration, biodiversity conservation. Improve living conditions and quality of life, not only in the metros and the urban areas, but equally for the rural areas and the vulnerable sections where we have a lot of marginalized population residing. Develop and implement health education programs that integrate environmental education. Encourage health seeking behaviors through cultural and social changes. And improve the access to quality health care. A lot of our research is also targeted to developmentally deformed children in terms of Down syndrome and those patients who need special care, and geriatric population, which is our priority apart from, of course, our youth. Therefore, all these things have to be integrated into our mindset, into our attitude, and of course, that will reflect in our strategies. So, this is just something to summarize that 2 plus 2 is never 4 in gene environment interactions and health and environment responses. You always have some triggering factors. And so gene environment interactions can shift the balance between health and disease. We are gene influenced, I repeat, and not gene dependent. So genetic loads the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger. We need to plant more trees. This is at the ONGC and the National Environmental Engineering Research Institute campus. So we need to plant more trees, yes, as we did today. And don't miss out on the whole picture. We have to look at the holistic health of the person in terms of the environment interactions. And when we see this, we are looking in perspective of the whole ecosystem, including the biodiversity and the wildlife. I also take this opportunity to really congratulate and thank all our organization workers from the Mumbai Zoo, and especially in the COVID era, to be working selflessly for the benefit of biodiversity, wildlife, and working for our animals. And thank you so much. Thank you all the listeners for your kind attention, and I'll be very happy to take up any questions. In fact, I want this to be more interactive so that we can discuss. Thank you once again.